McGraw-Hill Audio presents The Art of Talking to Anyone. Essential People Skills for Success in Any Situation. Written by Rosalie Maggio. Narrated by Bernadette Dunne. Introduction. If you have picked up this book, you most likely believe that being able to converse fluently and appropriately is a key factor in your workplace success and your personal happiness. You don't need to be convinced of its importance. The art of talking to anyone rests on this shared understanding and offers you not the why of conversation, but the how. The assumption here is that you can already converse. You've been doing it most of your life, and that you are a much better conversationalist than you realize. But you are, if not a perfectionist, at least a striver, and you want to be better. The art of talking to anyone will prime your pump, jumpstart your battery, provide the inspiration you need to attain absolute confidence in your ability to say the right thing to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Part 1 is your toolbox. Guidelines and strategies provide you with everything you need to become a more successful conversationalist. What is a good question? When should you not tell a joke? How do you get away from a non-stop talker? What verbal tics might you unknowingly have? How do you respond to a rude question? How exactly do you introduce two people to each other? Part 2 offers practical help making conversation in 9 areas of your life. Each chapter includes suggestions on what to say, what not to say, what to do in special circumstances, and how you might handle various situations. The section, If They Say, You Say, illustrates the back-and-forth nature of talking with others. No one says being a well-liked and charming conversationalist is easy. More than 100 years ago, Gamaliel Bradford confessed, "Somehow I find talk very unsatisfactory. I never say the things I meant to say, and am overwhelmed afterwards with the things I should have said and could not." Sound familiar? Someone once asked a friend, "How did you get to be really good at making conversation?" The friend replied, "By experience." "Oh?" asked the other. "And how did you get your experience?" The friend said dryly, "From being really bad at making conversation." The art of talking to anyone will save you from having to make bad conversation on your way to becoming a self-assured, sought-after, successful conversationalist. Part 1. The Basics. Chapter 1. How to Succeed in Any Conversation from Start to Finish. Before talking with anyone. The art of conversing with anyone begins long before you arrive at wherever you hope to speak charmingly and intelligently. This chapter tells you what you need to know for every step of a conversation, from introductions to body language to ending the conversation gracefully. Convince yourself you want to go. The first step is to choose to be there. If it's the workplace, you are allowed to feel ambiguous about your decision some mornings, but to make a good impression, at work, at a meeting, at a party, or at any kind of gathering, go with a positive attitude. If you hate being someplace, you can imagine that your conversation will not be scintillating, so either take your happy face with you or stay home. If you are attending something unwillingly because of work or family obligations, remember that a good attitude and a bad attitude are simply different ways of looking at the same situation. Your choice. Have something to say. Don't leave home without it. Something to say. Chances are you read a daily newspaper, perhaps a weekly news magazine, and if you belong to that particular 53% of the U.S. population, a book now and then. Collect fodder for conversation from the radio, friends, sermons, lectures, public television, eavesdropping on the subway, or waiting in line at the grocery store. Keeping up with current events and popular culture ensures you'll never be caught short in the conversation sweepstakes. You won't, of course, boldly drop whatever you know into the conversation. When you feel the need to break a silence, Start with a question. Did you see the article in this morning's paper about... Has anyone read Stephen King's latest? If there's no interest in your gambit, try something else or hope another person in the group has been doing their homework. You might keep a list of conversation topics, activities that interest you, questions, ideas, and review them before leaving for a social or business event. You might not need them, but you'll feel better knowing you can hold your own if you have to. If you can, find out a little about those who will be attending the event. That information, plus 3 or 4 conversational tidbits, should see you through almost any situation. But don't even think about rehearsing possible conversations. The irregular nature of most conversations makes them unpredictable, and you'll look stilted besides. Take your best self with you. The single most important element in being the kind of person everyone wants to talk with is confidence. You want to walk into a room comfortable in the knowledge that you are happy to be there, that you're looking forward to meeting some interesting people, and that you can handle whatever conversational challenges come your way. Expect to be liked and accepted. Take for granted that people will be happy to see you. And what's not to like? You were invited, you're part of this group, you're a good person. The 3 principles behind looking, acting, and being confident are: 1. People will take you at your own evaluation. Your attitudes about yourself bounce back to you from other people. If you think you have no social skills, other people will eventually come to agree with you. If you think you have nothing to say, you certainly will have nothing to say, and people will start seeing you as someone who has nothing to say. If you think you are nobody, you are practically asking people to treat you that way. On the other hand, if you think of yourself as a kind, intelligent, charming person, that's the way you'll be perceived. 2. People will catch and mirror your emotional states. If you are enthusiastic, they will be too. If you are bored, they will also be bored. 3. People tend to behave the way you think they will behave. If you think people are cold and snooty, they will probably end up acting that way to you. If you think they look down on you, ultimately they probably will. But if you think people are interesting, warm, and funny, they will not make a liar of you. If you expect people to accept you, they will. People will know if your attitude is defensive and insecure, or if it is relaxed and open. They might not think it through, but at some level, whatever you think, feel, and project will be picked up by others and returned to you. Because the aim of small talk is to make people comfortable and to put them at their ease, a self-conscious, tense, nervous conversationalist is going to be socially inadequate. You have doubts. By some magic, you are expected to go from a social shipwreck to a conversational Queen Mary? The magic is to act as if. Act as if you are brave and confident. Act as if others are happy to see you. You've got to believe, or at least act as though you believe, that the other person is going to enjoy spending a few minutes with you. It might feel artificial at first, but the more you act as if, the more the new behaviors will begin to feel comfortable. Keep reminding yourself that the vast majority of any group is kind, well-mannered, and willing to give anyone a chance, even a second chance. Feel free to be thinking, "Help, I'm a fish out of water. I'm gonna die. I don't know what to say. I'm boring. Nobody's interested in me. I'm gonna spill something. They're gonna discover I'm a fraud." Think anything you like, but stand up straight, smile, shake hands, and calmly and charmingly say, "It's a pleasure to meet you." Remember this: you are not everyone's cup of tea. It's simply not possible that every individual at a gathering will want to marry you, be your best friend, or share an office with you. What would you do with that many people in your life anyway? So most people you speak with will provide low-key, pleasant conversation, but you don't need to be a hit with everyone. You do not need to be perfect. The desire for perfection, for doing things absolutely right, has been the downfall of many a good conversationalist. Relax. In the end, this or that small conversation doesn't matter in the large scheme of things. You'll be more popular, and thus probably happier, if you concentrate on making the other person feel good. You can't make anyone like you, but it's in your power to show liking for others. Check out your body language. From the moment you walk in the door, your body is busy telling people all about you. What would you think about someone who rushed into a gathering looking harried and slightly sweaty? Or someone who slouched in furtively, hoping not to be noticed? Or someone who had apologetic written all over them, from hunched shoulders to puppy dog eyes? You probably wouldn't be anxious to talk with that person. Think about the image you want to project. Shouldn't it be one of confidence? Posture. With any luck, you already have good posture. It's distracting to be trying to converse with people while simultaneously hissing to yourself, "Stand up straight, shoulders back, stomach in." If your posture needs work, work on it before and after, not during events that call for conversation. Self-consciousness will prevent you from being the interesting person you can be. The person who stands tall, but not stiffly, and moves in a calm, purposeful way automatically commands respect. From the moment you enter a room with dignity and easy confidence, you tell people you are someone who matters, to yourself and to them. Good posture includes the way you hold your head. Study the way people in your life carry their heads and see what you think of the differences. In general, keep your head level. The metaphor level head did not spring from nowhere. A level head indicates an assured, candid, capable nature. It might also give your voice fuller tones and make you seem to be looking people straight in the eye. A bowed head, eye studying the floor, makes you look unsure, vulnerable, passive, and possibly even guilty of something. Tilting your head to one side or the other, most people tilt to the right, may show curiosity and interest, but it may also indicate unease, helplessness, dependence, or bewilderment. Fidgeting and gestures. Some body language is difficult to control. Blushing, contraction of facial muscles, involuntary grimaces, rapid blinking. Working on your self-confidence and your comfort level is the only cure for these types of reflexes. They will disappear when you begin to see yourself as an able and resourceful conversationalist. Other body language can be controlled with practice. Repetitive and pointless gestures spring from nervousness and insecurity. Once you begin gaining confidence in your skills and popularity as a conversationalist, it will be fairly easy to weed them out. An unnerving trait in a conversational partner is distractibility. Don't let your attention wander from the other person to the loudly dressed individual across the room, or the inexplicable choice of art on the walls, or the entrance of newcomers, or the conversation going on next to you. Ignore everything but the people with whom you're conversing. Other body language to be avoided includes shaking, waving from side to side, or pointing your forefinger at another person. This is an incredibly aggressive and unwelcome gesture. There are other ways to punctuate your remarks. Standing too closely to someone. The preference for personal space varies, but it is important to some people. The best way to handle this is to keep your distance. Let the other person move toward you. This is psychologically a good strategy, both in showing respect to the other person and in the other person demonstrating their attraction to you by moving closer. In moderation, gestures are appreciated as long as they're not always the same gesture. After checking the list above for the fidgeting kinds of gestures, use any others that feel natural to you. If you travel in other countries, familiarize yourself with the social and business customs there. For example, in the United States, the OK sign, the O with forefinger and thumb, means money in Japan, and in Italy and Latin America can be insulting. Patting a child on the head is considered a benign, even charming gesture in many countries. In Islamic countries, it must be strictly avoided because the head is the holiest part of the body and not to be touched. A number of books, including several good series, detail cultural issues for visitors to other countries. Smile. All that said, you might be wondering what physical movements are left to you. The best ones are a good smile and an occasional meaningful nod. Senseless and too frequent nodding is the opposite of the infrequent thoughtful nod, which tells people you are involved in what they're saying. But the smile. Oh, the smile will work miracles. It is the most important body language of all, signaling that you are affable, comfortable in your skin, and receptive to whoever the other person might be. The tendency of the human being is to reflect the emotion the other person displays. If you smile, chances are very good the other person will smile back. In some people, the smile is almost an involuntary tick. They smile regardless of the content of what they're saying. However, if this is you, before you start trying to fix it, remember that there are lots of worse things we can see on people's faces than a smile. There must be some smiles that are not desirable. The insincere smile, the strained smile. But anyone trying to smile for whatever reason should be given a chance to come up with a real smile. Any smile is probably a good smile. Introductions. Although there are rules for introducing one person to another, don't worry if they suddenly fly out of your head. Instead of being seized with horror and trying to remember what you ought to do, simply trust yourself, treat both people with liking and respect, and figure out a way for each of them to know the other's name. It isn't much more complicated than that. To introduce two people, 1. Give their full names, and 2. Add an impersonal identifying tag, such as, a dear friend of mine, my business partner. By adding a tagline, you give the two people a place to begin a conversation. How long have you lived in this building? Do you live in town or are you visiting? Do not attach embarrassing or excessive tags. I used to change his diapers when he was little. She's the best pumpkin pie maker in the country today. If you know that the two people have something in common, they both recently traveled to Peru, they both collect paperweights, they both know your brother, mention it. The part of introductions that generally is a challenge is deciding, quickly, who gets introduced to whom. The formula is, Mother, I'd like you to meet little Jack Horner. Jack, this is my mother. I'm a goose. Although we think we're an egalitarian society, one person is usually ranked a little more highly than the other. That person gets to find out first who the other person is. For the first person, use the name you are accustomed to using. If you introduce your boss to someone, depending on your place in the organization, you might say, Ms. George, I'd like you to meet my wife, June Olson. Each introduction is a little different from every other one. However, the samples below demonstrate in a general way how effective introductions work. Anna, do you know Bob Lorimer? Oh, good. Then I get to introduce you. Bob is a translator with Pelham Oil. Bob, this is Anna Pearson, also a translator, but with Guest & Company. Dad, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, Joni Kessel. Joni, this is my father, Arnold Dombey. Yes, the geology professor himself. Dad, Joni's majoring in geology, and she's always wanted to meet you. Although you can just begin speaking with someone without actually introducing yourselves to each other, it's probably not a good idea. By the time you're well into a warm, friendly conversation, it's awkward to have to say, what was your name? After being introduced, use the other person's title, Dr. Schneider, or honorific plus last name, Ms. Arnaud, until they suggest you call them by their first name, especially if they are professors, doctors, bosses, or older individuals. Do not use nicknames if the person doesn't use it. Charles is not Chuck, and Elizabeth is not Lizzie, unless you're so informed. Be careful, too, to use people's names in parallel fashion. It's very telling if you're newly introduced and you address one of your new acquaintances by their first name and the other by their title. In a pinch, you can get people to introduce themselves to each other. Indicate the one you know, even if only by first name, and say, "This is Jean." The other person will reflexively give their name, and Jean will generally supply a last name to round things out. This is not a particularly suave move, but 'twill serve sometimes. Immediately after being introduced, jot the other person's name in your mental Rolodex. Try to associate the name and face in some way, or use the person's name several times during the conversation until you think you've got it. Some people collect business cards. At home, they jot notes on the cards so that they can recall the person later. Unfortunately, many people run into someone an hour or two later at the same conference or party and, oops, the name is completely gone. If you're sitting when someone approaches you with another person in tow, stand up for the introduction that's coming. Both women and men do this. Note that when used for introductions, the question, "How do you do?" is not actually a question. It is a ritual greeting to which the response, sometimes delivered simultaneously, is, "How do you do?" In a variant of this, sometimes you'll see one person saying, "How are you?" The other person responds, "Very well, thank you, and you?" Again, it is simply a formula to ease you through the introduction. The biggest no-no in introductions is to approach someone and say, "Do you remember me?" When seeing someone you've met before, but know only superficially, extend your hand and remind them of your name. "Hello, Ken. Mario DiNardo. Nice to see you again." This allows the other person to say graciously, if perhaps not truthfully, "Mario, I know who you are." It is charming for you to assume that you aren't so famous that everyone knows who you are. If the other person doesn't offer a name, you can always introduce yourself. "Hello, I'm Francine Beecham. I'm in accounting on the 3rd floor. "Hello, I'm Roland Bemrick, an old classmate of our host." Shaking hands. Few people need lessons in how to shake hands, but in order for you to feel absolutely confident about this pre-conversational gesture, here are the guidelines. Approach the other person with hand already extended. Look them in the eye and smile slightly. Try to make your look say, "Ah, you're an interesting-looking person." Grasp hands, palm to palm, firmly but not tightly. Remember that otherwise healthy-looking individuals might have painful arthritis in their hands. Others might be wearing rings that a too vigorous handshake will drive into their skin. Try to match the grip of the other person. They will in turn be trying to match theirs to yours. In some mysterious way, you will usually arrive at a handshake satisfactory to all. In some countries, a handshake is a brisk up and down, a 1-2 maneuver. In other countries, one person's left hand is placed atop the two clasped hands to convey additional warmth. In the United States, people sometimes continue shaking hands for several seconds. In the case of a person one has long wanted to know, the handshake is prolonged, and the use of the other hand is brought into play. The most general advice would be to adapt yourself to the other person's manner, unless you have strong feelings of your own about making the handshake a special one. While you are shaking hands, you will be looking at the other person's eyes and saying your introductory line. For example, "I'm delighted to meet you at last." In most areas of the United States, women and men approach handshakes in exactly the same manner. In some places, women extend their hands first so that the other person knows a handshake is welcome. This might be a remnant of the days in which women were not on an equal social footing with men. Basic conversational principles. You have probably come up with some good conversational principles yourself, even though you might never have spelled them out. Whatever works, works. However, if you're looking to fine-tune your skills, see if anything below resonates with you. The goal of the first few minutes of any conversation with someone you don't know is threefold. 1. To find out a few things about the other person. 2. To tell a few things about yourself. 3. To find some common ground between you. Even in a big city, if you talk with anyone for 5 minutes, you will find several items in common. As Judith Martin, Miss Manners, puts it, you must forage for a topic of mutual interest. This is done by putting forth a collection of bland observations until one of them is seized upon and developed. The key to a good conversation is a certain back and forthing. Englishman Raymond Mortimer once said that in the United States, conversation is not tennis, in which you return the other fellow's service, but golf, in which you go on hitting your own ball. Nothing will be more helpful to you in becoming an outstanding conversationalist than this metaphor of a tennis game. Keeping the ball in the air is an art and the point of most conversations. To get started, you might ask the other person about their work or interests, or better yet, volunteer a little of that information about yourself. Keep the tone and the content of the conversation light until you find a topic you are both interested in and want to explore at some depth. Conversational gold is found when you mine a topic you are both passionate about. Use the word you much more often than you use the word I. That's not to say that you shouldn't use I at all. In the give and take of conversation, you need to counter information offered by the other person with some information about yourself. If you are discussing a topic, tell how it relates to you or why you're interested in it. This adds layers to the conversation. But when I outweighs you in your conversation, you will notice a waning enthusiasm in the other person. In a group, stimulate conversation as much as you can. Bring in the quiet ones. Pass the baton to someone who hasn't spoken. Try to discover an interest common to all of you. Be interested and friendly, cheerful and good-humored, courteous and flexible, respectful and open-minded. Yes, that's a tall order, but if you go into a conversation expecting good things from it, you'll be all that and more. Look from person to person and keep a pleasant expression on your face if your face will do that for you. If you are downhearted or discouraged, unhappy or uncomfortable, try to box the feelings up for later examination. Not only will you be badly out of place in a general conversation, but it really won't do you any good, and the next time people see you, they might feel like hunting up the nearest restroom. Use the words we, our, ourselves, and us to establish a sort of kinship, a sense of being in the same boat. If you are shy or self-conscious, the best cure is to approach anyone standing alone or someone who has been looking as though they'd like to talk with you but are too reserved to do so. Larry King points out, "The person you're talking to is probably just as shy as you are. Most of us are." At any gathering, there's likely to be a handful of guests as ill at ease as you are. Find them. Try not to spend long periods of time with one person, however, even if it is more comfortable for you. Social and business gatherings are not designed for two people to hole up in a corner and ignore everyone else. Mingling is expected of everyone. Avoid talking while you are eating or drinking. Unless you are very, very hungry or thirsty, or unless you are an old hand at these things, you might want to stay with Perrier and lime. Not a problem if you spill it. Don't worry about showing ignorance of a topic or saying, "I don't know. No, I'm not familiar with that," or "I've never heard of such a thing." Will Rogers pointed out that everyone is ignorant, just on different subjects. You undoubtedly know things the other person doesn't. But a conversation isn't a competition. You're not on Jeopardy. You will be liked for saying straight out that you don't know and then asking the other person to tell you about it. A good conversationalist uses details, precise descriptions, colorful nouns. The writer Joan Aiken tells about her daughter reading a story in which the main character said, "We went into the chateau and were served with wine and little cakes." Her daughter flung down the magazine, exclaiming, "What's the use of that if she doesn't tell you what sort of little cakes?" Try to always tell what sort of little cakes. Unless you are in a business discussion, avoid jargon, multisyllabic words, and slang. Try to establish a feeling that you're on the same wavelength. We tend to feel warm toward people who agree with us. You needn't betray your own principles, but if you fish cleverly enough, you'll pull up something you both find edible. When appropriate, sprinkle your conversation with brief expressions of kinship. I'm like that too. I've always thought that. I agree completely. I'm crazy about mine. I share your enthusiasm. That's exactly what I think. Remember that saying, "I'm just like you," is
Sample complete. Ready to continue?